Welcome to the Black Knight Nation podcast. I'm Sal Interdonato. The Black Knight Nation podcast is sponsored by Higher Echelon. Higher Echelon is a world-class consulting firm that trains employees in sports psychology secrets that drastically improve work performance. Founder Dr. Joe Ross is retired Army who played and later coached for the cadets and puts that experience to use for his clients. Higher Echelon is your go-to trusted partner for organizational excellence. And with that, we'll welcome in our special guest for tonight, Frank Scappaticci, former Army football captain in 2008. And Frank, it's been a long time, but we were just talking before we got on the air. It's great to see you, man.
Yeah, it's been a long time since we spoke, doing interviews underneath the bleachers at Mikey.
Oh yeah,
but it's good to see you. Thank you for having me on.
No doubt. I thought I might have caught you maybe a couple times at Army games. Have you pre-pandemic? Were you able to attend a few or no?
Yeah, so I actually I had season tickets a couple of years ago. I live in Westchester, so I'm only about an hour from the stadium. And my wife loves to go to the games. My oldest daughter likes to go. I had a newborn, and then COVID hit, so I took a little bit of a break, from coming to the games. But I plan on coming back next year. And Army Navy game is only 6 miles from my house in Yankee Stadium next year, so I'm definitely going to be at some of the games.
I guess as a season ticket holder, you probably saw some exciting. Was that part of some exciting finishes at Army during that time? Did you see like the Temple game maybe, or the Eastern Michigan game? Were you at any of those games?
Yeah, I forget the year. It was either, I think, 16 or 17 or 18 that we won every home game, and like 3 of them we had an overtime win, and then we had like 2 other crazy finishes. And I remember having drinks in the A room with a lot of the other old grad football players, just going nuts, because that was probably the best year to have season tickets in decades. Honestly, yeah. I got super lucky when I moved back to New York and was able to go.
When I was going back and looking at your time at Army, the reason why I brought that up is you were part of the Mikey Miracle, weren't you?
Yeah, I have Mike Wright. I spoke to Mike Wright about a month ago, actually. I call him Miracle Mike, which he hates because it's like a joke. But yeah, that was a crazy, crazy game. And for anyone that hasn't seen the clip, you can Google it or YouTube it. And that play was interesting because no matter what the refs called on the field is what would have stood. There's no discernible way to see what happened on that play. Mike toe dragging in the back of the end zone. It's impossible. So we were lucky the refs called it a touchdown, but hey, we won the game, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, and that wasn't even a game-winning play, right? That was just a send to OT. And I remember covering that game, and Kevin Dunn, coming out of nowhere and just marching you guys down the field, right? It
was amazing. Kevin Dunn comes in, hadn't played much at all, comes in, leads the team to victory. And I actually remember that night. The game ended at night. It was dark outside. Yeah. I think it was like in October or something. Matt Forte was on Tulane, so we played against a really good running back. And I remember the soup came in after the game and was like, you know what? Everyone's on pass. So I remember like the entire football team got to go out that night. We had a little bit of fun.
Yeah, I remember that, like a night game. And like you said, going up against a Tulane team that had a pretty solid NFL running back on it. And you knew Matt Forte was going pro. That was going to be good things. What was that like? Even to, like I always ask this, and maybe he's your guy, but playing Army football, what is the, like, especially on defense, who you think's the best player you ever had to go up against during your career?
Yeah, so Matt Forte was definitely the best running back we played, and we played against good running backs. I played against Ray Rice, Tashard Choice, who played for Georgia Tech. Mike Goodson at Texas A&M, I thought he was really good too. He played in the NFL for a while, but I thought Forte was the best. The hardest I've ever been hit was by Anthony Davis, who's a tackle at Rutgers. He played in the NFL for the Niners for a long time. That guy, like, his hands were like sledgehammers. The guy was so big and strong. He's like 6'4", 340 pounds, big, strong dude. Yeah. I remember those 2 players being really, really good playing against them.
Man, your linebacking core was John Plumstead, yourself. Who else am I missing? It is Brian Chamorro. Was he part of that group or no?
Well, Brian was a year older than me, so Brian.
Okay.
But Brian did. I played with Brian, so my first year starting, I played next to Brian Chamorro. Yeah, but we had a great room. We had when Steven and Josh were coming up, it was me, Steven, Josh, and John Plumstead got the majority of their reps. And then after I left, Andrew Rodriguez got a lot more play, who was an academic All-American, super high achiever. And there's a lot of we had a lot of depth actually, which to be honest back then was not usual. We had Rod Murray play a little bit. So yeah, it was a good room. That was definitely the strength of the team the last couple of years I was there for sure.
Well, different. Like you look at Army linebackers now, right? And Eric Smith is playing at 240 pounds in the middle, right? What were you playing at back then?
Well, I was really skinny my junior year. I played at I think I was listed at 220, but by mid-season, I probably lost 5 or 6 pounds. I was probably playing at 214, 213.
Wow.
And I'm 6'1", so it's pretty thin, Yeah. But I could run pretty well. Then the coaches moved me to middle, and they advised me to gain a little weight. So I started that season the next year at 234.
Okay.
And but I have a high metabolism, so I would end up finishing the season at 228 or something. But to be honest, I think the way the game is played, I really don't think you need to be 240 pounds to play college football at any inside linebacker position. Now the edge players tend to be a little bit bigger and stronger. But I mean, with everyone spreading it out, and the emphasis in my mind really is on running and hitting, 225. If my linebackers could play, that's cool with me, I don't think you need that extra weight really to be effective in college anymore.
You're right, absolutely. Because you look at Army's defense last year, and they were number 1 ranked in total yards, and they played a lot of 5 DBs, right? Mm-hmm. And then in the past, and Jay Bateman, I mean, you might see 6 defensive backs on the field at one time, and like you said, with spreading the ball around.
We had a linebacker at Army 2 years ago. He was short and not that heavy, but he could run. I'm forgetting his name. It wasn't Cole. Cole's bigger. It was he blitzed a lot, man. I'm forgetting his name.
You're not talking about Jimmy Hammersticks, James Nautical, are you?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
He did. I don't think he was that heavy, but he was a good player.
Yeah, he was. Probably around 220. I don't know, 225 or maybe somewhere at that. Man, that bowl game against Houston, forget about it. That's a career right there for some players.
I remember that. He had a great game.
Holy cow! So we like to talk about how you got to West Point. Do you have a recruiting story? Now I know you grew up on Long Island, right?
Yeah, Long Island, St. Anthony's High School, which is as far as New York goes, a pretty big football school. I just asked my coach to make a tape for me because I didn't know what I was doing, and somehow it made its way up town to take a look at us. I had a twin brother. Well, I have a twin brother, and they recruited us both as a package essentially. And I remember I came on the official visit. Barrett Scruggs was my host, who's a linebacker as well. And he was a team captain too. And he did a great job. I wanted to commit, and my twin brother wasn't sure. And I was like, hey man, I'm just going to commit tomorrow. And then my twin brother was like, fine, I'll just go too. And then we ended up both showing up. And that was it.
Were you receiving interest from other schools, or was Army pretty much your number 1?
I was receiving interest from a lot of AA schools, like the Ivy Leagues. I went on an unofficial visit to Penn as a junior, kept in contact with them. And then there was some other schools, Georgetown, like Bucknell. The UCF linebackers coach ran a camp I was at. So that was the only other 1A school I was getting recruited by. But I was on one of the first official visits. Army was my first visit.
Okay.
And I canceled whatever ones I had after that. Because Army does such a good job at the official visit. Or at least from my perspective, they did, right? Yeah. It's prestige, you got good job prospects when you get out, opportunity to play really good teams. So that got me, I was hooked.
They throw the 3 Heisman trophies in front of you possibly, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though, they're from the 40s, but they're the Heisman Trophy, the national championship teams, the history of the program. We just growing up in Long Island, did you know much about West Point before they actually started recruiting you? Because I grew up in New Jersey, and I didn't realize that West Point was 45 minutes away from me. I could have gone to see some pretty good Division I football when I was younger.
No, I didn't. I should have. I mean, I don't. There's no reason I didn't. I just didn't know anything, and it's odd. I think New Yorkers in general are so like Ivy League focused, and parents are all pushing them towards like all those types of schools. I actually feel like your average Texan is more aware of West Point than your average New Yorker, to be totally honest. Like even my friends, I was like, yeah, I'm going to West Point. They're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, it's only an hour away from our house, you know?
Yeah.
But it's whatever. People didn't know about it. But once I did learn, I was super pumped, obviously. Like I showed up, loved it, committed the next morning, I believe. And, you know, great. Obviously, I think it's an amazing school.
Yeah, I think your Texas insights on the mark, because you look at like a Ronnie Makeda, right, who was from Texas, and even like Colin Mooney. Like there's a senior right now that's at Katie Taylor where Colin Mooney went, and Colin Mooney's they have an indoor practice facility. Colin Mooney's like poster is up there, and like that kid walks in every day and he sees, you know, I guess if you had a former Army football player play at your high school, you're immediately like at least know of that it's there. And now the success back in the tough times, you know, maybe not, but now the success they've had in the last couple of years, right? I mean, they're right there on the cusp of being the top 25 program almost every year now. Well, in the 3 of the last 4 years. So
yeah, I mean, of course, the kids are idolizing Colin Mooney. He's like the most jacked person from Texas. Like the guy probably sells protein shakes to his high school. It's but yeah, I'm just making fun of Colin. He's my teammate, but he's awesome. Yeah, I can only imagine, right? Like I thought they did a great job recruiting when the team was struggling a little bit, to be honest, in terms of executing the visit. You know, how good the players were compared to the players we're getting now. I'll be totally honest. I think the players better now. If you just look at them athletically, they're superior, right? Like no doubt about it. But the visits were always good. So
yeah, and now they don't have those official visits, unfortunately, with COVID. So they have to even work even harder to get the guys that they're getting now. So we talked about the Mikey Miracle. What are there any games that stand out in your career at West Point? As far as, you know, maybe right off the top of your head, some memories that you've had as a football player?
Oh man. Yeah, I'm trying to think. The Tulane game was an awesome game because it was also just a really competitive, close game the entire time. I remember we had a Temple win at home. I was either a sophomore or a junior, and we had a kick return that kind of put us over the mark there. And that was an awesome win for us. Man. For me personally, I remember we went down to Tulane, and I scored my only touchdown I ever scored. I had an interception, and it was kind of like it was a terrible pass by the quarterback. Like it was like the easiest pick ever, but I only had to return it like 17 yards or something. But I scored, and we won. So I was like, hey, I scored a touchdown. We won the game. I'm taking it, you know. So that was really cool.
Where's that football? Do you still have? You got to have that football.
I don't have the football. I don't know if anyone saved it for me. I don't remember ever getting the football. Luckily we were away, you know, so if I didn't remember, I'm sure no one else would. So I don't have it, right? I might just like buy a football and write on it, you know, like, hey, November 10th, 2008, whatever, you know, make it up.
Yeah, you remember the date. That's pretty impressive.
No, I made that up too. I don't.
Oh, okay, I thought you remembered the date. Yeah, I mean, getting into the end zone, I mean, as a defensive player, right? I mean, on the road.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, it's I mean, as a linebacker, like, and or a safety or a corner, I mean, like that's probably the number one play. Like when you go to bed and you're thinking about the game the next day, like that's the play, you know, like you're hoping the quarterback makes a mistake, you break on the ball and you take it to the house. Like there's probably nothing better. Some people maybe want a big hit, but points are points, right? You got to get the points.
Right, I remember like doing some breakout stories and asking those questions, like big hit or pick six. You're probably a pick six guy.
Yeah, I mean, big hits are cool, right? You know, but like I'm secure enough in my manhood. You know, I want to get the points, man. Plus, like, look at the stat sheet, right? So if you look at the stat sheet, you're like 100 tackles, interception, touchdown. You're like I'm like looking at the season. I'm like that's good work. You know, like that's That's awesome.
Yeah, no doubt putting in the work there. Now we were talking about this, the relationship you had with like the football players. A lot is talked about the brotherhood that is formed there, and whether it be successful seasons or some tough seasons, no doubt that kind of gets you through not only football but also West Point, I imagine. You talked about still to this day, John Plumstead. I mean, I know you guys you're really good friends at West Point, and now you guys are actually you have your own business together. So talk about the relationship you had with John as a football player, and now how it's grown to a partnership, so to speak, in the business world.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So we came in same class. So we're both 2009 grads. Came in the same recruiting class, playing the same position. We were both weak side linebackers coming in, and I believe we were always friends, but I believe I came in above. No, he came in above me at the depth chart. Then I skipped him. Then he skipped me again. Then going into our junior season, we were competing directly for the starting spot. I won that job, but then eventually they just moved him over to Sam so we could both play, right? So we had like this very friendly but very competitive relationship, right? Just by the nature of where the coaches were putting us and the positions we played. And we had a good relationship. We were both team captains senior year, get along great. Went through tough times together, right? Tough and bad and good. And then about a year ago, we both like had our regular jobs, and we both have been in real estate in terms of buying houses and doing rentals and stuff like that, landlording. And he called me and he's like, "Hey man, do you want to, we got COVID hit and we got all this free time. Like you're not commuting. I'm not commuting. We're working from home. Do you want to create a little bit of a side hustle and like do some deals together, flip some houses and stuff, basically pool our resources together?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So we started a company, and like 3 months in, we were like, "Oh, we actually have like a real thing." Like we had done a few deals, and now we kind of keep doubling down, and we're at the point now where I think we're managing. We have like 27 or 28 houses under contract right now. A year later, and we probably have to sell 20 of them in the next 3 or 4 weeks. We turn them over really quick, and we hired another Army football player, Carlos San Diego.
No way.
He's also our classmate, and we have another Army veteran who is another. We have 2 sales guys. One's Carlo, and one is another Army vet that used to work with Plum. So it's like such a heavy Army presence in our company. And the name of the company is Gray Line Investments. So we also ripped off West Point's name. We actually changed our logo because we didn't want to get copyright infringement. So we made it like less West Pointy. Yeah, that's us, man. It's a West Point led company, football centric. Three quarters of the U.S. team is our football players.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I tweeted out yesterday Army football nicknames. I remember doing a story in my first year on the beat. Caleb Campbell helped me out. Caleb Campbell, I swear, he emailed me a list of the whole roster and every player's nickname. Carlos San Diego, what was his? Didn't he have he had a nickname? Didn't he? Did he not?
Yeah, his nick. Yeah, he did. His name was Seasick. So he had like a fake Carlo. So he had Seasick. He had a fake rap album that he came out with, I think, when he was a sophomore or Yuck. And eventually it made the rounds. Like, I think it had a couple thousand views on YouTube.
Yeah.
But when we would do our nicknames at Army back then were fun because when we would take attendance on away trips to get on the bus, they'd be like, "Hey, Carlo," and he would respond like "Seasick," and like the entire team had like funny nicknames.
Yeah.
When you're at West Point, sometimes you do whatever it takes to have some fun, because you get a little bored. So that was like our game. So that was Carlos.
What was your nickname, man?
So I used to lie in the program and make it up. So like one year, my nickname was like Ravenclaw. Like I would come up with like really stupid. I didn't really. Well, one year I called myself Scap City, and I actually opened up a personal LLC this year for tax purposes, and I called it Scap City LLC, which is like a joke between actually me and Carlo because we would always make up nicknames.
What do you think the best nickname on the team your senior year might have been?
The best nickname was Charlie Rockwood's nickname was Bonesaw.
Yep.
And and when we won the Tulane game, he started like doing like a bone saw thing. We caught it on tape. It was so funny. It was awesome.
That's awesome. I put him. He's on the list. He's like on the original list I posted on Twitter. Charlie Bonesaw Rockwood. I thought that was pretty good. And Steve Anderson. who does host a podcast with us here, the Old Grats podcast.
Hollywood, right? Yeah.
Hollywood and 50, he said.
Yeah, I like Hollywood. 50 is good. 50 is good, but is it original? It was his number, you know.
Well, he's spelling it Fitty.
Yeah, that's what our Coach Lyles came up with. That's what he would call him. But like I said, like, is that a creative nickname? I mean, you know,
that was his number, right?
It's his number. Hollywood's more fitting with his personality. I prefer Hollywood.
And I think it goes Hollywood Steve Anderson, not Steve Hollywood Anderson, right? Or no?
Yeah, that's how I remember them doing it. Yeah, correct.
Crazy. So Stan Brock let the whole nickname bus thing go by in his watch.
That whole part of the process was like that. I'm not even sure if the head coach was there. It was kind of like the administrative portion of the trip. Like,
okay, gotcha.
Colonel Lynch back then would be like, everyone get on in the end zone. We'll call attendance. We're like in our ask for class. And then we would get on the bus. So they just want to make sure they have all the players, you know, like no one overslept or took a nap and missed the bus time, right? So they're just doing attendance that way. You know, I'm sure the head coach has got bigger things to worry about, you know, than if we're like with our names. But I mean, you know, it's harmless stuff. Like we're not doing anything wrong.
What was it like playing for Stan Brock? Because I know he might have had a short tenure as Army head coach, and I know that he tried to change, you know. He tried to change the program. He brought the fullback back. He brought the triple option back his second year. What was it like playing for him?
Coach Brock was a big players coach in my opinion. I thought he was super receptive to you know, what the players would say while also being firm. He ran tough practices. I remember practice intensity picked up under Coach Brock, particularly my senior year. Like the first stringers would hit against each other pretty frequently during camp, even at the end, like 10, 12 days before the game, you know? And I think Monken brings some of that too. I've seen a couple practices. They practice hard, you know? They actually work really hard, which I like. But Coach Brock definitely brought some of that. He's also a great guy. Coach Brock is a great person, a really, really good person. Definitely proud to have played for him. And what he was all about. He was a great guy.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, his time was short there, and maybe he didn't get that. Maybe that in that third year, maybe because he was getting pretty good players. He was doing pretty good on recruiting guys. And when you have that NFL background, right? I mean, the guy was an NFL stud for about at least 10 years, I think. So he had a pretty good NFL career too. So,
I mean, yeah, it's the like the 06 to before Ellerson won the bowl game. That period is interesting because there was actually a decent number of NFL players on those rosters. We just never were able to put it together. Caleb was there. I thought Jordan Murray was a really good player. Carlton Jones, Scott Wesley were both really good players. Like there's players in the NFL that are worse than them, you know?
Yeah.
I guarantee, you know, Steve Anderson was really good. Josh played in the NFL. Ali was there. It's like, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, no doubt. If you have any comments or questions for Frank or I, please feel free to post them. We'll get them on here. See if we can get some questions going. Now, you're not new to the podcast game, Frank, right? You got your own podcast. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about what you're trying to do on the podcast platform level?
Yeah, so it's related to our business. So in our business, we essentially, I live in New York. John lives in New York, and our other two people in our company work in Wisconsin and Virginia. But all the properties we buy are essentially in Texas, Georgia, North Carolina, Florida, basically the Southeast. And so we're buying all these things virtually. That's the phrase that we use. And there's a skill to it, right? There's like a way to do it. There's a process to follow that I think we've gotten pretty good at. So we started a podcast called the Virtual Real Estate Investing Podcast. And our goal is really to just share what we learned, you know, going from zero to, you know, doing a good number of deals a month. You know, we're not the biggest players in the world in this space. There's people that do probably double or triple the volume we do, but there's probably not that many people that have hit the volume that we have in this short period of time. Usually it takes 3 to 5 years to get to this point. So, you know, we're trying to share what we learned. So it's really for real estate investors trying to grow their business in single family. So like, you know, your quintessential house. That's
it. Any stories from there that you could share with us that you might have shared on your podcast? Any, you know, interesting stories that were just, you know, on the bizarre side?
It's It's hard to say. I mean, we see crazy stuff. I mean, a lot of the houses we acquire, because we acquire them at a discount, is for a reason, right? So there's crazy, like, there was a flood, or the house was infested or not taken care of. Like we get like the dirty stuff, because that's really where the returns are. So the stories we hear are insane. Like I'm buying a house tomorrow from someone who hasn't paid taxes in 2015. It's so we have a lot of stories, but I can't really share all of them, I guess.
No. I was just thought that, who knows? I mean, that's for another, down the road and stuff like that. We talked about you following the football team. What have you seen in them what do you think? Like you mentioned Coach Monken's practices and how, they seem to be pretty physical at times and stuff. When you watch Army football play now, what do you see and what do you like about the way they get it done?
I think the biggest difference I see is speed, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. And it's not like, more in the B-backs area or the slot backs area. I feel like we've had some good athletes on the Army football team. I think quarterback depth has been a huge improvement on the Army football team, which is good if you're going to run the option. You're going to get dinged up. It just is what it is. And I feel like Monken, having a lot of experience running the option at Georgia Southern, and probably I'm not even sure how long, actually, how many years he's been running that system. You can tell, like, when our players are making their reads, like the speed and conviction is just a little bit quicker. I'm assuming because the experience of the coaching staff is that much better. And then defensively, I do think it looks like to me we keep things pretty simple from a scheme perspective, which is good. And I think you look at our corners, like Elijah Riley was there a couple of years ago. He's a good player. We haven't had corners like that in a long time.
Yeah.
So to me, the primary difference is probably athleticism. I'm sure if I went to the weight room today and when I was there, like Caleb had some records, Colin Mooney and Vidi had a lot of the records for strength. I'm sure all those records are gone. Like just by looking at the players they brought in, I'm like, those records probably don't exist anymore, or they've been overtaken is what I'm saying. So I think athleticism and recruiting is probably the biggest gain that they have.
Before you came on, we actually had the current Army head strength and conditioning coach Connor Hughes on with us. And we had a great talk with him for 15 minutes about what they're getting done now. And it's just, the technology is just incredible about what they're able to do now. And at practices and how they are able to, rate and they can tell speed, how many miles per hour a player is going during practice and stuff like that. And and then they have these fourth quarter warrior drills where they're having tug of wars and and it's just the brotherhood, right? I mean, it's got to be crazy. Like when you get that, like you mentioned, the locker room after that Tulane win, that Mikey Miracle. I mean, it's got to be nuts, right? I mean, it's just got to be incredible.
Yeah, it was nuts. I mean, that's every college football team. You get a win at the last second, and you're like exhausted, and you're a little delirious after playing a whole game. Yeah, you're gonna go nuts. It's there's not a lot of feelings like that when you just squeak something out and it's a team. That really was a team win. It was like a 24-20 win, something like that. Offense scored some touchdowns, defense had some turnovers. So it was just when you have a win like that, it just feels really good to have everybody pull through.
Have you seen the Coach Monken I Want to Fight videos?
I've seen a lot of Monken pump up videos. I've seen the videos of him like ripping chairs and smashing them and going nuts, like rally. I'm not sure I know what video you're talking about though.
He goes, I guess it was probably last year they played Georgia Southern and they won Georgia Southern. They were able to pull out that game. And he runs and he struts into the locker room. I want to fight. I'm going to fight until I can't bleed no more. That kind of Army, I guess Army phrase saying. And so they hoist him on the players' shoulders and stuff like that. Dude, he after their Air Force win, I don't know if you caught this. He lifted up the Commander-in-Chief's trophy off the ground, lifted it up.
Yeah, he's pretty strong, right? I mean, he's not like the biggest human, but he's got some pythons, right? Like he's not weak,
I think that trophy weighs 170 pounds. And usually takes like 2 or 3 players to like when it's done, when they win it, hoist it up in the air. So
yeah, if your form's good enough, you can get that thing off the ground. I haven't seen the video, so I don't know if he bicep curled it. If he did, that's pretty impressive. But if he was, if he did like a goblet squat or something, like okay, I could see it. Not too bad.
I was going to ask you, what do you think it would be like playing for a guy like him?
I mean, based off of what I know, it'd be tough, right? I think it's one of those. I think he's tough on the players, but I think that's what's required, right? College football is I don't think most people understand how hard it is to actually be a successful college football player and to run a successful team. Like the level of competition and the work going in at West Point's got to be high because, to be honest, like that person at Wake Forest or Rutgers or whatever team playing, they're working hard. They're working hard, and I think at West Point, sometimes coaches will think, well, my guy's not getting any sleep or my gal's not getting any sleep. I got to give him some rest. I got to do this. I got to, baby him a little bit. And that's not the case, man. I think it's one of those things where, yeah, West Point's difficult. Playing college football is difficult, but that's the situation you're in,
Yeah.
And you'll appreciate it when you get the win at the end of the season. That's probably the way it needs to be for West Point to be successful.
I was trying to think one year I might be Coach Ellerson moved the practices to the morning. And I'm like, I think they might have started. I got there like a little bit before 7, but I think they might have started around 6:30 in the morning. And that might be the year that I thought they were going to have a good season. It might have been Trent's senior year. I could be wrong, but I think they won 2 games. I think they won 2 games. And I just like, you're waking up for what time? Formations, right? I mean, 6. When were formations when you were at West Point? Like
breakfast, I think was 6:30 or 7. You have to be outside ready to eat breakfast. It was one of those 2 times.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they were trying to make sure they got enough rest in the evenings and time to get their grades right. But the problem is with the way West Point schedule works is if you practice at 6:30, you got to get out of there by 8. Like there's not a lot of time.
Yeah.
Like not like the players can miss the first 4 periods of class, Yeah. Like, so I don't know. I wasn't a fan personally. If you asked me if I would have recommended that schedule, I would have said no, but I'm also not qualified to be a coach. So
yeah. I remember going in there and Coach Ellerson's showing me like their breakfast buffet or what he was feeding the players. And I think they had their first class was 9:00. Maybe they had the schedules altered that year, but I don't know if that was a difference maker, right? Move. Like you're looking at Monken when he got in there, right? What the military training, they moved that up to like, a May, June, so they can get the players on campus for, summer classes and working out in the weight room from that period that you probably had your military training, right? Right before football practice started.
Yeah.
Right?
It's this constant struggle for Army football is how do you maintain training and, make sure that they're ready to be officers while also creating an environment you can win football games, right? It's the ultimate push and pull. And I think you always try to find the right balance. I would say when I was there, I'm not sure I don't want to complain, but I remember my junior season, I was leading a running group for Beast Barracks. And I was running because I was a good runner. I'm running like miles every morning at a super fast pace. I'm trying to gain weight. And I showed up to camp like 7 or 10 pounds lighter than I wanted to be. And I only had like 4 weeks or 5 weeks before the game started,
Yeah.
And we're playing Temple. And I'm like, man, I was just running like 4 miles every morning at like a 6:30 pace, Like that's not good training for football. It's just really not. It's elongating the muscles. And now I think they've done a great job of realizing that that's not how you win. That person at those other schools that you're playing is not doing that to their body, right?
Yeah.
So do you want to win, right? If you want to win, what changes you got to make to win, right? It's a real equation. There's no perfect answer.
Yeah, I remember like freshmen. Like I remember like a Brett Toth who's now playing in the NFL for the Eagles at tackle, coming in at a 6'6" guy coming in at like 220 pounds after Beast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as a freshman, and then look what now he's a 300 plus pound tackle guard and offensive lineman in the NFL. And his senior year, he was playing right around that like 300 pound weight, which back in the day, I mean,
Yeah, we didn't have a lot of 300-pounders. Ali could get over 300 pounds, but he was 10, so he carried it pretty well.
I think Ryan Alexander is. I don't know. He might have been a little bit before after your time playing tackle at Todd McDonald playing tackle at 240 pounds during the Ellerson years.
Yeah. I mean, look, we also had good players though. We had I think it was Seth or something. He was like
Seth Reed, maybe.
No, he was. It's not. I can't remember his name. But we had when I was a freshman, we actually had a good tackle. He was light. He was tall and light.
Seth Neiman, maybe.
Yeah, it sounds familiar. I can't remember. I feel bad. I should move on.
Gotcha. Hey, it's been a blast catching up, man. Really appreciate it. Is there anything else you would want to plug before we go out?
No, I really do appreciate you coming on. There's a lot of Army football players, I'm sure, that are interested in real estate. Army guys and gals tend to get involved in it. If you're interested in that stuff, my email is frank@graylineinvestments.com. If you want to catch up, happy to be a mentor, happy to help out younger players or former players. So that's it.
Nice. And you can find this YouTube on you can find this podcast on all podcast platforms. We're on Apple. We're everywhere. Spotify. You can listen to this interview. We're also on YouTube. This interview will also be on YouTube. Frank, it's been a pleasure. Great catching up. Look forward to doing it again soon.
Awesome. Thank you very much.